So welcome back to the MarkBow channel. If you're first time visiting the channel, why don't you hit that subscribe button. I've got a lot more videos coming. We're removing the chain case cover, and I'm going to adjust the chain tension and put the new oil back in. I pulled out the plug, and you can see in there there's a little tiny O-ring. Make sure when you pull that, unscrew this from your chain case, that this doesn't fall off and fall into your oil pan, and you know, you might not notice. Then you go to put it back on and you're missing the O-ring that seals the chain case. All right, so we're going to go on to the removing the chain case cover. Not a big deal. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, 3/8, and this one here 9/16. So let's go ahead and take those off. She's all free now. There we go. You don't need to disconnect this at all. We can just hang that to the side. And we'll just pull this adjuster off of here. I've got this bolt loosened off. You can just pull that off of there and just give it a little check. Check the bearing, the needle bearings in here. I mean, this sled has 978 miles on it, hardly anything. There's a little bit of slop in there, and that's probably the way it's engineered, just to give you an idea. You can see that there's a little bit of movement in there. That's fine. So that looks good. It turns nice. There's no friction or anything. So just put that back here. I'm not pulling the chain off of here or anything. I'm just going to clean it out now and clean out the bottom as well. It's pretty messy down in there. While you've got it apart, just check this bearing best you can, jack shaft bearing. You can put a bar or something underneath in the back on the shaft and just wiggle it, see if you can sense any movement. Also in here, like, you can turn this, feel if there's any friction or anything. Wobble it a little bit. This should be really good, which it is, but check that bearing there on that jack shaft. So you need to put a little bit of gasket in here. You can see where there's a crack there. You don't have to, but I do. I use a little bit of isopropyl alcohol and clean off the oil. Off that bit of gasket there. Just so when you put the gasket maker back on, that silicone type stuff, that it will, right here, the wire brush, soft wire brush, clean that off. That old stuff off there. Because every time you do this, it's going to build up and build up. And it's not going to get a proper seal. There you go, that's good. Okay. It's nice and clean now. And I just use this stuff here, Ultra Black Advanced Gasket Maker. So just put a little bit of that on there. Don't need to overdo it. Just enough to seal up that. Before you put your cover back on, make sure that this is pushed down, you know, so it's sealed properly all the way around, because sometimes when you pull it off, it will kind of come, like when you pull the cover off, it will kind of stick to the cover. So go underneath, down below there, And make sure you push that in all the way around before you put your cover back on. There we go. Okay, so what you want to do is you get your 9/16 wrench, and there's a groove on that shaft. And you want to go on the other side with your other 9/16 wrench and take that bolt out of that shaft. Okay, so make sure that you put it back onto the chain case the proper way, because there's actually a little bit of a difference. Okay, that there end goes into the cover. See, it's got a taper on it, and this end's got a flat end. Okay, okay, so that made it a little bit quicker by putting the bolt on the end there. We'll just snug it up with the wrench. That's good. Don't over tighten it. And we'll just hold that and we'll take our bolt back out. There we go. So now that you've got the pinion shaft bolted back onto the case and you've got that washer there, you can actually sneak this gear. Remember, the wider gear matches the wider gear on the chain case. You can actually just patiently fit that gear in between the chain and the gear itself. You can see right there, you can actually just squeeze it in there. It's a little tricky, and like I said, you have to have patience, and that will fit right back in. It's really the only way that you can put this assembly back together. Before you put this chain case back on, here there's this little tiny O-ring. So make sure you clean that out. Clean it out in here. I've got it, there's a little bit of dust in there, but it's pretty clean. Make sure that that thing's okay, in good shape. That's a special O-ring. It's a little bit harder than the standard O-ring, so it's reusable. Just make sure it's in good shape, slip it back in there. And you've got it. So when you put your case cover back on, you've got the forks for that reverse. And see that groove right there in the middle of the screen? You have to get those forks over top of that groove. It's a little bit tricky, so I'm going to try and show you. So you can see there I've slid that other little gear on, and I've got that washer on the pinion shaft, and we're going to put that yoke there over top of that slot that I showed you earlier on that reverse gear as we're sliding this whole unit back on. Make sure our gasket's on properly all the way around. Slide this down. Make sure that goes over there. Good. And we've got our washer and our gear on. We've got our rubber O-ring is still in place. So we should be able to just slide that with any luck. Make sure it just goes on, don't force it. Everything should just go right into place. There's actually pins that line it up. So you see down there, the pins are lining up. That's working. Tap it on there. That's it. So it's on there. Feel it, make sure it's not forcing or it's not fitting. It feels good. So before I put my bolts back in, I like to just clean the threads off, because for some reason there's all kinds of goop on there. So just use this is a stainless steel brush, just enough just to clean the threads off, because you get, over the years, if you get those threads filled up with gunk in there, you'll have a hard time and start stripping the threads. What I like to do is I like to just snug all the bolts up first. So I've got all these, there's the 4 plus the center one, and just snug them up all the way around first. By hand, you can just feel it, and then go back and torque them. I don't have the torque spec right now. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see what the torque spec is on these smaller bolts and the big one in the middle. This one here is 26 foot-pounds. Whatever you do, don't over tighten these things. This is all just aluminum cast. And you could easily break something. And don't forget, you got a rubber gasket in there and you don't want to squish the life out of it. It's just meant to hold the oil in there. You know, it's not structural or anything. There we go, 26 foot-pounds. So I've got this, I just put that cable back on there. Just goes in like that. Then I'll put these two bolts in, and then I'll get ready to adjust the chain tension. So what we do is we're going to snug up. This is for a 500 with reverse. Okay, so now I'm not tightening it, I'm just snugging it up. Okay, I can feel that that's sort of, you don't basically just finger tight, right? Just gonna back that off. That's about pretty much snug there, okay? And we're gonna go back, because this has reverse. It's different if you have no reverse, you only back it off about a quarter turn. But when you have reverse, it needs more play in the chain, so we're going to back it off 1.5 turns. So let's see if we can keep track of the turns. That's a half. That's one whole rotation. Just looking at that line on the bolt there. And then we'll go back a half a turn. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to hold that. Whoops. Hold that where it is. Lock up the lock nut. Snug that up. I mean, this isn't rocket science. You just want to get it between 1.25 and 1.5. So I'll tighten that up. Let's see what that line is. That's about where I started. So that's exactly what. Hold that bolt so it doesn't move. Snug that up. And that's your 1.5 turns in there. You need that play. Whoops, can't see that. So just check on your, up here on your disc brake. You need that play in there so the reverse will engage. Here's what I use. It's Royal Purple Max Gear. It's a synthetic oil, 75/90. I wouldn't worry too much about the weight in this old snowmobile, but the thing is, it's synthetic. You want to use synthetic because it doesn't get thick in the cold weather. Some people use just regular gear oil and it's just way too thick. Or you can use the Polaris or any other brand. I'm not telling you what to use, but this is what I've been using in my sleds for years and I've never had any issues at all. Measure it out first. I got 4 ounces. This one with reverse takes 4 ounces of oil. Some of the manuals you see online, they're not correct for the actual, the particular sled. So make sure that you double check when you're pouring it in for the very first time. You want to keep it between the 2 lines here. Just kind of put some in, check it, put some in, check it if you're not 100% sure. There we go, that looks good. I'll check it a bit later. Once all the fluids kind of settle down, I'll check it again. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that and it was helpful. Just basically now I just have to put the exhaust muffler back on. It's just basically 4 springs and that's one little maintenance project done. when your garage doubles as a studio. People come in, open the door, get the green bin. Thanks for watching. MarkBow.